Hi, I'm Sam Corin. I'm a physician that practices at the Charlottesville Wellness Center Family Practice MD-VIP. I'm board certified in family practice. I'm a fellow of the American College of Occupational and Environmental Medicine and a fellow of the American College of Preventive Medicine. I see what climate change is doing to us now, so I'm being a part of the solution.
Hi, I'm Emily Little. I'm a nurse and a family nurse practitioner. I worked as a nurse at the University of Virginia in the emergency room, and now I'm a mother of 3 children. I have gotten involved in the Charlottesville-Albemarle climate movement because I think climate change is one of the greatest threats to the health of Virginians. I'm the secretary of the local climate coalition Seville 100, and I volunteer with the Climate Reality Project and Generation 180.
Like most Americans, you've probably been hearing a lot in the past few years about climate change.
There are plenty of places that you can go to find out more about the causes and worldwide effects of climate change. The Sierra Club website is a great place to start, and the book Virginia Climate Fever has excellent resources about Virginia climate change.
We could go into a lot of detail about how climate change works. The short version is that climate change, or also called global warming, isn't really doubted amongst the vast majority of scientists who study climate. It's real. It's causing damage right now to the atmosphere, the oceans, and the land. This affects all living things. But what I'm especially interested in is how it's affecting us here in Charlottesville and human societies around the world.
These are not effects that might happen years down the road. They are things that are already harming people in this country, in this state, right now.
I never thought this could happen in my lifetime. But climate change is happening. It's driving much of the weird weather we're seeing here in Charlottesville and worldwide.
Humans and many other species can only exist comfortably in a narrow window of livable temperatures. Even changes of just a few degrees can have tremendous impact on fish, birds, mammals, reptiles, and the animals and plants that feed humans as well.
For instance, right now, there's a worldwide die-off of insect populations. You might not think that we'd miss a few bugs and beetles, but insects are the bottom of the food chain. Without them, we'll start seeing declines in songbirds, frogs, fish, and much of the rest of the natural world. And we know we need the bees for our own food supply. In the warming oceans, fish either have to migrate to waters of temperature they're adapted to or die off. And some of both is happening. This is causing a pretty dramatic change in the fisheries we depend on for food.
Sometimes things seem to be happening on such a large scale that they are hard to relate to. But what about here in Charlottesville and Albemarle County? What consequences are we likely to have from climate change here in our home in Central Virginia? What will the effects be on our health, our parents' health, our children's health, and our grandchildren's health? And as climate change increases illnesses, how will our local economy and our personal finances cope with that burden?
As health professionals, we decided to make this video to answer some of these questions about the local effects of climate change.
Scientists are predicting that in 2050, Charlottesville will have 3 times as many days with temperatures over 95 degrees as we have right now. Instead of the 30 we've had on average, we're going to have 90 extra hot days. Already we've seen the doubling of these extra hot days since 1970, so most of the summer will be a heat wave.
The illnesses caused by extreme heat and high humidity are heat cramps, heat exhaustion, heart attacks, stroke, ranging from mild to deadly. The elderly, outdoor workers, people without access to air conditioning, and people with chronic diseases or obesity are at higher risk. Anybody you know?
A major health effect of heat waves comes from not getting cooled down at night, which enables a person to have fully restorative sleep. I've survived the newborn baby stage, and missing sleep is no joke. You do not feel right. A surprising new study at UVA found that during heat waves, visits to the emergency room increased not just for heat stress-related illnesses, but across all categories of illness. So, for our loved ones with chronic illnesses, they will be at even more increased risk.
There can be other effects on weather besides heat. In the Charlottesville area, the weird weather extremes caused by climate change that we have experienced so far include the drought in 2007 and the amount of rain in 2018, it was 150% of normal, setting a new record. This was a climate change for us. As the atmosphere warms, it holds more water vapor, leading to heavier downpours. As powerful air currents way up in the upper atmosphere move the water vapor around, the southeast states get too much and the west get droughts. We can expect a trend of extremes like much heavier rain and snow to continue.
We aren't as likely to be hit directly by increased hurricanes here in Central Virginia as coastal communities are. But we know from Hurricane Camille in 1969 that our area isn't so far inland that we can be sure of escaping their devastation to property and lives. The increasing amount of rain in the atmosphere can cause flooding that is severe, even if the winds aren't extremely high. Our neighbors in South and North Carolina experienced devastating flooding quite far inland in 2018. As weather becomes more variable going forward, there's no guarantee that the changing air currents of the upper atmosphere, like the warming that brought us the breakdown of the polar vortex in January 2019, won't bring us more extreme weather events here in Central Virginia.
Beyond flooding, there are at least 5 health-related effects of hurricanes and enhanced rainfall to be concerned about.
First, if we lose electricity, sanitation, or water treatment, we'll be facing issues with refrigeration of food, provision of health care, and lack of communications and transportation.
Second, indoor air quality can decline as moisture from rainfall and flooding often leads to increased production of mold.
Third, the risk of infectious disease increases, especially with exposure to waterborne pathogens when sewage or water treatment systems overflow, or due to skin wounds and fungal infections. Diarrhea illness, acute respiratory illness, and skin infections have all been reported after hurricanes. As an ER nurse, I'll admit I'd love to see a good skin wound and figure out a treatment plan, but that definitely makes me weird.
Fourth, exposure to toxic chemicals increases due to overflow of toxic waste sites or chemical storage facilities, like the coal ash pond spill near the Dan River in 2014.
And fifth, floods and hurricanes are very often followed by a proliferation of mosquitoes and the diseases they transmit.
All that extra rain isn't good for our local farmers either. Without sunny days, crops can rot in the fields and apples shrivel on the trees. Will this lead to food scarcity?
Also, higher temperatures have been found to make fruits and vegetables less nourishing. The loss of nutritional value is minor so far, but it will become a real problem as climate change worsens in the coming decades. There's no way my husband will be able to muscle through a double salad.
Even though all that extra rain and heat can be a problem for the crops we depend on to eat, there are other kinds of plants that will flourish in these conditions.
Yes, more carbon dioxide in our air can lead to more ragweed, grass, and mold, meaning more allergens and more asthma. Also, the growing season in Virginia is about 15 days longer than it was in the 1980s because of climate change. Have you noticed your allergy season becoming longer? It is.
The prevalence of hay fever in the U.S. rose from 10% in the 1970s to 30% in 2000. The CDC found a further 28% increase in American asthma rates from 2001 to 2011. The total amount of airborne pollen has increased by 46%, so no wonder the asthma and allergy rates are skyrocketing.
Asthma and allergies are treatable conditions, but are expensive to treat. The CDC put the annual costs of medical care for asthma at an average of $3,266 per patient. Not everyone can afford to treat themselves or their children. As an ER nurse, I have watched many patients struggle to breathe. It is terrifying for the patient and for their family. They often lean into a position called tripoding in order to lessen the work of breathing. Their heart rate increases. Sometimes you will see blue coloring around their mouth. That indicates a lack of circulating oxygen. When you work in an ER, you have all the resources to help, but as asthma and illness increase, it will require a lot more resources and place a financial burden on our community.
2 other types of allergens are increased by climate change: ground level ozone, called smog, and fine particulate matter that permanently stuck in our lungs, called soot. Adverse health effects caused by poor air quality are similar to the effects from smoking, except that lung cancer is not as common. Albemarle and Charlottesville air quality has been good in the past, but according to a major study by the American Lung Association, our air quality is starting to slip due to smog and soot.
As we've said, many types of insects are in decline, but some of the insects that cause the worst health problems are actually increasing around here as our warming climate becomes more favorable for them. Ticks and mosquitoes. To quote my 4-year-old, ew, gross!
Milder winters are causing the tick population to skyrocket. James Nataro, MD and PhD, who's a pediatric infectious disease expert at UVA's Children's Hospital, said, "I'd definitely say cases of Lyme disease are surging here, and I've never used that verb before when it comes to increasing incidence of anything."
In 2006, Virginia health officials reported 357 cases of Lyme disease to the CDC. In 2017, they reported 1,041 confirmed cases, 3 times as many. The CDC estimates the actual rate of infection is about 10 times the reported rate, so it is now around 10,000 cases a year in Virginia. Lyme disease has become our state's most common invasive disease. It is transmitted by the ticks, which can live on many kinds of animals and birds. Not only can Lyme disease be debilitating by attacking muscles and organs, it can also become dormant in our bodies and keep coming back as a chronic illness.
3 other kinds of tick-borne illnesses are also beginning to proliferate in Virginia, aided by a warming climate. Rocky Mountain spotted fever and ehrlichiosis, both are quite serious or even fatal when they occur. The Lone Star tick bite can cause an extremely severe allergic response to red meat. I'd welcome more of us eating a plant-based diet. This is really a hard way to make you do it.
As if ticks weren't enough. We've also been getting more mosquitoes and the diseases they carry, some of which were never present in Virginia in the past. West Nile disease was first reported in Virginia in 2002. There were 163 cases reported to the CDC in Virginia from 2002 to 2016, and 12 more in 2017. But these statistics vastly underrate the actual occurrence of West Nile virus.
There are 2 forms of the virus. The severe form, called neuroinvasive, invades the brain and sometimes kills people. Nationally, the CDC reported that 68% of the reported 2017 cases were neuroinvasive. That's 74% of the infected were hospitalized and 7% died of West Nile disease that year. But the number of symptomless or mild non-neuroinvasive cases of the disease usually aren't recognized or reported, as West Nile virus has been estimated at 30 to 70 times as much as the number of neuroinvasive cases.
There can be mental as well as physical effects of climate change. Exposure to extreme weather events such as floods, hurricanes, and wildfires is associated with a range of mental health impacts. Some of them are post-traumatic stress disorder, depression, anxiety, and committing suicide, and increased rates of substance abuse and interpersonal violence.
The worst health consequences of climate change won't be spread evenly among us. They'll be concentrated on those at the bottom of the economic ladder. People with the fewest resources suffer the biggest impacts of extreme weather events and diseases like asthma. That fact hasn't changed since we all witnessed the horrors from Hurricane Katrina in 2005. And our neighbors in North and South Carolina experienced similar patterns of help for the better off and neglect for the marginalized during the recovery from Hurricane Florence in 2018. We can't neglect the emotional and social costs either. Charlottesville is going to look really good for many people seeking to avoid the coastal changes. So look for more people moving here, putting pressure on our community resources. We all see the devastating emotional effects of extreme weather, which stress both us, our families, and the community.
But action on climate change provides one of our greatest health opportunities. That's because many climate change solutions improve community environments and the public's health and reduce health inequities. Everyone benefits. The side effects of making changes are cleaner air and cleaner water.
Speaking of solutions, we'd like to end this video by talking about things we can do to reduce greenhouse gases and start turning climate change around.
Plant trees, especially in areas called heat islands that have dense buildings and mainly paved over ground. The shade of trees cools an area. Trees also remove excess carbon dioxide, absorb air pollution, and buffer against storm runoff.
Reduce CO2 and other greenhouse gases in your vehicles and change to electric vehicles or at least hybrids. Walk or bike more. Take public transportation if it's available and feasible.
Weatherize your home and your business to reduce your energy use and bills. That's one of the biggest ways you can reduce your carbon footprint. Changing your light bulbs to LEDs is pretty easy, and you will save you money as well as trimming your electric bill.
Change heating and cooling in homes and businesses by converting from fossil fuels to solar if possible, or to electric. If installing your own solar isn't an option, Dominion Community Solar Plan, for a surcharge, converts the source of electricity that your home or business use to solar energy produced by Dominion here in Virginia in the amount of the electricity you've signed up for. You get the mix of energy from the grid, and the mix gets more solar. Dominion is a controversial company, but this program has real value for all of us that use electricity and can't create our own solar or alternative source.
Buy less stuff. Every new purchase requires a lot of energy to be created. I love using the hierarchy of needs, a play of Maslow's hierarchy of needs that we learned in nursing school. Use what you have, then borrow, swap, thrift, make, and only after you've tried all of those things would you actually consider buying something. Maybe at that point you don't want it anymore.
Avoid traveling by air. Buy locally made or grown stuff instead of stuff brought here by air, truck, or rail.
Eat more fruits and vegetables, whole grains and healthy oils. Reduce or eliminate eating beef, pork, and lamb products, including milk products, and eat chicken and fish sparingly.
Actively support the City of Charlottesville and County of Albemarle and UVA as they work on new climate plans that match the scale of the climate crisis.
Join one of the local climate action programs to learn more, make new friends, connect with your community, and leverage your fight for health and a healthy planet.
Climate change is already here and will get much worse if we don't aggressively reduce its causes. We means all of humanity, but especially you and me.
The problem is so much bigger than any one of us. You and I all are small parts of this problem, but if we work together, we will be like the parable of the sticks, easily broken one at a time, but impossible to break when tied together. If we all act together, we can make a difference here in Central Virginia in our lifetimes. That's what will stop the worst effects of climate change, if people everywhere all make changes.
Right now, it doesn't look good for the big picture, but I want to be part of the solution, not part of the problem. What about you? Let's work together to leave this world a better place for our children, our grandchildren, and our great-grandchildren.